Hello and welcome to another abandoned football ground video where today I'm visiting the little house on the prairie. No, really, I am. No, I didn't mean the old TV series starring Michael Landon. I'm talking about something completely different. But you can see at the moment, I'm basically on the top of the hill. I'm in County Durham again. Just down there is the town of Crook. Check out my Crook Town video if you haven't already. And I'm in a little village called Stanley Crook. So this is a village of about 500 people. It's originally just called Stanley, but was renamed Stanley Crook so as not to be confused with the bigger town of Stanley in the north of County Durham. Like most places around here, it was built on mining and used to have two collieries. And actually in the 1970s was categorised as a Category D village, which meant that the council wanted to demolish the whole place, but in the end only a few streets were actually demolished. So what's all that got to do with football? Well, this small village used to be the home of Northern League team Stanley United. In fact, they were 3 times Northern League champions. And formed in 1890, they joined the Northern League in 1910-11 and were eventually Northern League champions 3 times in 1946, 1962 and 1964. And they left the Northern League in 1975 and joined the Wearside League and then some local leagues before eventually folding in 2003. And I'm going to visit the abandoned ground. Just before we go up to the ground, this is one of my favourite County Durham place names, Billy Row. It's almost up there with Pity Me near Durham City. And if you haven't already, check out my Towlaw Town and Willington videos as well. They're really good. So a little bit more about the club. In 1954-55 they actually got to the first round proper of the FA Cup, where they lost to local rivals Crook Town by, is it 5-2? In fact. And they also got to the semi-finals of the FA Amateur Cup in 1920, losing to Tufnell Park, which I think are a London team, by 1-0. I'm getting quite close to the ground now. We've got a bit of a new build housing estate here, but the football ground was called the Hilltop Ground, as you can imagine from the view I saw you showed you a bit earlier. And the club were nicknamed the Knops. I'm not sure why, but the old Middlesbrough Ionopolis Football Club were nicknamed the Knops as well. You know, a bit earlier I said that there were 2 Stanleys in County Durham. That's interesting because I'd always known about the club Stanley United, but until a couple of years ago I always thought they played in the bigger Stanley in North Durham. But no, apparently it was here, the much smaller Stanley Crook. There's actually a couple of the groundsmen at Willington who told me that. And here we are, just coming to the ground in a second. In a short while I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why this place was called the Little House on the Prairie. And here we are. The term prairie is seeming even more appropriate now because it's being grazed by sheep. We're going to go in there in a minute, but I want to show you something else first. As we go along the perimeter wall here, there's a little plaque just up here that I want to show you. I think this is the only remaining proof of this once being a football ground. Don't know if you can make it out, but I'll read it to you. This says, "This wall was erected in 1961 by voluntary help and subscriptions and presented to SUAFC, that's Stanley United AFC, by their president, JB somebody underneath there." So there you go. Right, just before we have a proper look around, I'll put a couple of old photos up so you know what I'm talking about. Here you go. So I'm guessing this would have been the main entrance to the ground. And the pitch, you can see, well, the goalposts are still here, up here. Just up here, where these sheep are going, would be walking to the, where the little house on the prairie actually was. So the little house on the prairie was the affectionate name given for the changing room tea hut and sometimes storm shelter that stood just over here, and as you've seen in the picture, actually looked like a white house. Now unfortunately the little house was burned down by arsonists, which eventually led to the demise of the club in 2003, and it would have been just over here. Now, as you can see in the other picture of the stand on the other side, I think that what looks like a barn now is actually the remnants of the framework of the old stand, but I could be wrong. But you can see, unlike a lot of abandoned grounds, you can still very easily see the footprint. As for the little house on the prairie, I can tell you it's February and it's supposedly about 5 degrees, and my hands are absolutely freezing even now. So when it gets to, or got to 0 and or even was snowing, it must have been perishing up here, because if you see those houses over there, that's a pretty new build estate, so I'm guessing that was quite exposed. And without those houses, you'd get even more of an impression of a hilltop ground. It's a blessing that the site's still here though. I mean, these days you just never know when a ground's going to be built on and the ground's going to be lost forever, so hopefully this video will show some posterity. You can sort of see over here we're just basically on the top of a hill surrounded by farms. Look at these rusty old goalposts. Not the most level playing field either. Believe it or not, the record attendance here was apparently 5,000 against the also defunct Leytonstone in the FA Amateur Cup of 1920. Imagine that, 5,000 around here. I don't know if there was any terracing at that time, but you can see like a bank on the other end there where there may have been some terracing. And this must have been a remarkably atmospheric ground to play at. If you have any memories of this place, please put them in the comments below. Apparently there was a large covered stand on this side here. Now, I don't know if that's the kind of same cover that was where this barn is. But who knows? I'd love to see some old pictures, but I haven't found any. And from here you would have had a great view of the old house itself over there, which apparently, apart from changing facilities, upstairs had the T-bar, which had, I quote, amazingly wonky floorboards. Just an old 2-up, 2-down white house. It's great seeing the old perimeter wall here, still intact. Probably going back all the way back to what, the First World War time. There's a sheep over there. Yeah, if you look at the photo, I'm pretty sure this is the framework of the old stand, or the kind of last stand that was here. So you would have been able to stand in here and watch the match. I think it's just a barn now. This is like turned into a proper abandoned place video now, which I'm pretty happy about. Here's the back of the old stand. So I'm guessing the wall would have continued around here as well. So yeah, before they built this new build housing estate over here, you can really see how this ground was right on the top of a hill. The wind and elements would have been coming in from over there. Honestly, this has got to be one of my favourite videos I've done so far. It's so rare to get an abandoned ground that's truly abandoned like this, but with, you know, proper remnants of the place still existing. Look how rickety this railing is around here. How does the railing get so bent like that? So yeah, I'm wondering if there was a terrace along this bank here. At least you got a slightly elevated look at the pitch. Someone's lost the ball here as well. So that's my tour of the eerie and evocative Stanley United almost complete. Again, I'm guessing this was one of the main entrances onto the ground as well. You can see the remnants of the footpath, the hard standing there. Little wall going around the side here. This is where you'd get into the ground. Yeah, it may well have been a terrace at some point up here. Probably made out of old rubble from one of the mines or something. This may well have been one of the best views of the ground. Although that corner over there is quite high as well. So you've got the old here, then you've got the modern windmills in the background. Much like the Cockfield ground, I can just imagine standing here in a sort of long miner's trench coat with some Bovril in hand, absolutely freezing my proverbials off, watching the local boys play football. So much history. Just one thing, looking behind here, I guess the ground had quite a big footprint. If you think the pitch didn't start till over here, there was all this area around here. Apart from a sort of a car park, I wondered what it might have been used for. Okay then, I'm absolutely freezing, and that's it for another video on an abandoned football ground here in County Durham, from the Hilltop ground and the little house on the Prairie in Stanley Crook, former home of Stanley United. As always, please subscribe, share and like, and I'll see you in the next one.